very big hello to all my wonderful PU2 champions out there. How are all my dear children doing? I hope you are doing great. And for some of you, the midterm examination might be really close. For those children, let me tell you, do not be disheartened if at all you have not completed a lot of chapters out there. You still have time. It's not late yet. Okay, so please make sure you're beginning it at least now, and do not let any negativities be in your head. Okay, say that I will not listen to anything that is coming outside from my head. I am going to give my best. That's all. And if at all you have that affirmation, do not forget to let me know in the comment section or click on the like button. And why do we need to cover this chapter? Because it gives you 11 marks or at least 10 marks. So according to the 3 blueprints, there are different marking schemes. So 10, 11, 11. So mostly it is 11 marks. Anyway, you will get 10 or 11 marks after studying this chapter. And let me tell you, this is one of the easy chapter, easy scorer. So make sure you're not missing it. It's not too big. Right, it's not too big. It has information, but it has so much information that you have already studied previously in smaller grades as well. So make sure you're listening to me carefully like lullaby and studying with me. Okay, ready? Okay. So the first thing that we need to know is the male reproductive system. What is the male reproductive system made up of? It is made up of a primary sex organ, okay, and reproductive glands, reproductive ducts, and then external genital organ. So why do you call something as primary sex organ? Because it does the primary function of production of what? The gametes. What are the gametes in the case of males, my dear children? It is the sperm, ma'am. And is it just going to produce a sperm or something else? It is also going to produce the male hormones, ma'am, which is why it will be known as what? The primary sex organ. What is the primary sex organ in the case of males? It is none other than the testis. Ma'am, I heard that testis is inside a pouch. Is it true? Yes. Testis is actually found inside a pouch-like structure which is known as what? Scrotum. So this is a scrotum, and inside that you have the testis. Where is the location of this scrotum, ma'am? So over here, suppose this is a man. So this is a man. Over here, this region is known as pelvic region. And if you locate the testis inside the body, my dear children, it will be too hot. Okay, it will be, temperature is too high, and at this high temperature it cannot form sperms, which is why you have the what do you call sac-like structure up over here, which is outside the pelvic cavity, in which the testis would be there. Okay, that is the reason why it is inside the scrotum, because it wants to maintain 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the normal temperature. Why? Because that is the ambient temperature what for spermatogenesis, for the formation of sperms. Will you remember this? To 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower is very much important information. Now, if we talk about the structure of testis, it is ovular in shape. Okay, the length of it is 4 to 5 centimeter. This is the length, and 2 to 3 centimeter is the width. 2 to 3 centimeter width and 4 to 5 centimeter length. This is also very important. So 2, 3, 4, 5. You can remember like that. It is covered by a dense covering. And now if you go inside the testis, my dear children, there are 250 testicular lobules. So if you can see this is one testicular lobule. Just like that, you have 250 of them, testicular lobules, team lead, TL. And under the team lead comes what? The whole team. The whole team consists of what? Almost 1 to 3. Okay, almost 1 to 3 seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules. So 250 testicular lobules are there, and in each of the team, my dear children, almost 1 to 3 seminiferous tubules are also there. Done with scrotum as well as testis. I hope this 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower temperature, you will remember it. This length and breadth, you will remember it, right? And 250 testicular lobules and 1 to 3 seminiferous tubules. Now going ahead, what happens inside the testis? What happens inside the seminiferous tubules? So this is the seminiferous tubules, my dear children. Over here, someone is saying, I am Sertoli cell, I nourish the mighty spermatogonia. So within these seminiferous tubules, there are certain cells which are known as what? Sertoli cells. And what are they going to do? They are going to nourish what? The spermatogonia over here. What are spermatogonia, ma'am? Spermatogonia are the one which undergoes division to form what? To form sperms. So you have spermatogonia over here, agreed? That is the germ mother cell which is going to form what? Germ cells which are known as gametes, the sperm. And over here you have what? Sertoli cells which are there for the nourishment of these guys. Done. It is happening within the seminiferous tubules. Now this is a seminiferous tubule, this is another seminiferous tubule. In between that you see them. What are they? They are known as Leydig cells. They are known as Leydig cells. Now these Leydig cells, my dear children, they have another name. They are also known as what? Interstitial cell. Where is it written? So they are also known as interstitial cell. Why interstitial cell? Because it is in between the space. They are present in the interstitial space. This space is known as interstitial space. Okay. So they are known as interstitial cells or Leydig cells as well. And what do? They secrete something that is known as androgens. What are androgens? The male sex hormones. Androgens are nothing but the male sex hormones. Why do we need androgens, ma'am? For the formation of sperms we need androgen. The spermatogonia is there, but it has to form the sperms, and for the formation of sperms you need what? The male sex hormones. Apart from that, for giving the man all the secondary sexual characteristics, you need the male sex hormones, that is androgens. And the most famous androgen is what? It is testosterone. Done. So over here, what do we have in our head? So my dear children, if you go within the testis, you can see seminiferous tubule. Inside seminiferous tubule, you have two types of cells. Sertoli cells that provide nourishment or nutrition to the germ cells. And then my dear children, you have spermatogonia, which are also known as the male germ cells. They undergo meiosis to form what? Sperms. Who provide nourishment? Sertoli cells. Now, if you go outside the seminiferous tubule, there are interstitial spaces in which you find Leydig cells, which are going to produce what? Androgens, such as testicular hormones. The most famous one is what? Testosterone. And it also has small blood vessels and immune cells. Remember that. Okay. Certain immune cells are there. This is also an important question. That means the one that provides protection. So immune cells are there and the blood vessels are also there. Fine. In the interstitial space. That's all. Now going ahead, talking about accessory ducts. What do you mean by accessory ducts, my dear children? They are the one that are going to carry the sperms. So sperms are being formed inside the testis, but there should be one who should carry it, right? So who are those? They are the ducts. So over here, okay, I'll explain like this. Suppose this is the testis, okay? You have the testicular, what is there? Testicular lobules over here, and then seminiferous tubules is over here. Agreed? These seminiferous tubules, listen to me, this is a rapid revision, okay, we have to be quick. These seminiferous tubules which are there, they are going to come together to form a structure like this, which is known as, rete testis. Rete testis. Now rete testis is going to move out of the, what do you call, the testis. Okay, they are going to try to move out with the help of another duct, which is known as vasa efferentia. This is known as vasa efferentia. E for exit, you can remember like that. So they want to exit, but they are not able to exit because over here another duct is being formed. And this is the longest duct out there. You call this as epididymis. This is known as epididymis. If you keep it straight, it is almost 6 meters long, my dear children. This is what? The epididymis. Now the epididymis, my dear children, is going to go towards the urinary bladder with the help of another duct which is known as vas deferens. So how many of you did study? First one is rete testis, and then comes vasa efferentia, then comes epididymis, then comes vas deferens. Now what happens to the vas deferens? Please listen to me carefully. So over here you have the urinary bladder, my dear children. The urinary bladder is over here. Urinary bladder goes up straight. This is the urethra through which the urine is going to go out. And this is the urethral opening, which is also known as urethral meatus. Fine? Remember that. Now, over here, the seminal vesicle goes back and comes like this. It goes back and comes like this, forward. Okay? And here you get a secretion of a gland. Similarly, on this side also, you will get a secretion of a gland, which is known as seminal vesicle. This is a gland, accessory gland. As of now, we are studying about duct. So the last duct that we spoke about is vas deferens. Now I am telling you, it will receive one more secretion from seminal vesicle, and both of them are going to open together to form something else which is known as ejaculatory duct. What duct? Ejaculatory ejaculatory duct. Now this ejaculatory duct, my dear children, opens into what? The urethra. Similarly over here also you will have ejaculatory duct, it opens into urethra. Fine. And then, so one thing that you understand from this particular thing is that urine is also passing from here. The sperms are also going to pass from here itself. Yes, that is true. In the case of males, there is no separate passage for urine as well as sperm. Both of them are going to pass through the same opening, which is this. Clear? Easy? Simple? Right? Done? Now, my dear children, since anyway we are talking about all of this thing, so these are the ducts out there: radial testis, epididymis, radial testis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens, and then comes ejaculatory duct, and then comes urethra. Okay, urethra, if at all you do not consider, it's okay. It's until ejaculatory duct that you need to remember. Now, comes the next thing, that is the glands, accessory glands, the ones that is going to secrete certain things out there. So, seminal vesicle is the first thing. First gland out there. What does it secrete? It secretes something which is known as fructose. Okay, and why do you think it secretes fructose? Because it wants to provide energy to the sperms which are coming over here through vas deferens. That is why. So, seminal vesicle is the gland that is going to give what? Fructose to the sperms. And then comes the next gland, which is known as prostate gland. So, prostate gland is like a donut through which the ejaculatory duct and everything is going to pass through, my dear children. It's like a donut. So, over here in this prostate gland, it is unpaired. So, here as you can see, they are paired. There is a pair of it. But prostate gland is unpaired gland, the only gland which is unpaired. Even though prostate has P, but unpaired does not have a P. So, you can remember it like that, unpaired. Okay, it's contradictory. And what does it release? It releases two very important things. One is calcium, and the other one is certain enzymes. So, calcium and enzymes, both of them are very much needed by the sperm for increasing the fertilizing capacity, and also for the easy movement. Okay, for the easy movement and for increasing the fertilizing capacity of the sperm. You can remember it like that as of now. Well, there are 10,000 of other functions, but as of now in this particular level you need not know that. Okay, now going ahead, over here starts the penis, which is what? The external genital organ in the case of males. And at this particular point you find the third gland which is there, which is known as bulbourethral gland. Bulbourethral gland. This is also known as Cowper's gland. And what do? They help in the lubrication of the penis. Okay, they help in the lubrication of the penis such that, my dear children, the sperm can easily travel through. Fine. So, there are three glands: seminal vesicle, and then what? And then prostate gland, and then bulbourethral. Bulbourethral is paired, seminal vesicle is also paired, but this particular gland, which is prostate, it is not at all paired. Seminal vesicle is releasing fructose for providing energy to the sperms. Calcium and enzymes being produced by the prostate glands are therefore increasing the fertilizing capacity of the sperm and for the easy movement. And then you have bulbourethral gland or Cowper's gland, which is there for what? The lubrication of the penis. Done? Now, over here, if at all you are someone who does not remember the flow of the ducts out there, you can remember Ravi visits every village. So, Ravi, R for radial testis, V for vasa efferentia, and E for epididymis, and V for again vas deferens. So, how do you remember vasa efferentia or vas deferens? So, you can remember after V it's E only. So, it will be vasa efferentia and then epididymis and then medial vas deferens and then comes ejaculatory duct. Okay, that is one way to remember it. Now, over here the same picture is being given and a proper picture is being given actually. So, if you see, this is a seminal vesicle and then there is a prostate gland. It's like a donut, but over here it's not been mentioned like that. It looks paired over here, but it is not paired. It is the one that produces calcium as well as enzyme. Then you have the bulbourethral gland, and over here you have the external genital organ. We'll come to that. Okay. Now, so, pathway: seminiferous tubules, then radial testis, then vasa efferentia, epididymis. Epididymis is the place where the sperms are being stored. Always remember. From epididymis, things goes to vas deferens. It loops over the urinary bladder, joins the seminal vesicle duct, forms the ejaculatory duct, and opens into what? Urethra. We studied it already. Urethra starts from the urinary bladder, extends to the penis, ends at the urethral meatus. Function: stores and transports sperm from testis to the outside. Okay. That is the function of the male accessory ducts in total. They are storing and also transporting things. Now, going ahead with the glands which are there. So seminal vesicle, as I told you, it's paired. It produces fructose, which is there for nourishment. Do not get confused with glucose, sucrose and things like that. It is just fructose. Okay, and prostate gland adds calcium and enzymes to what? The seminal plasma. Bulbourethral gland, they are paired and they lubricate the penis. That's all. So these are the 3 glands up there. So this one is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. Bulbourethral gland, you also call this as, where is it? Cowper's gland. Done? Chalo. Now all about the external genitalia, that means external genital organ in the case of men. So let's see that. So over here you had the genital organ, my dear children. This is known as the penis. So it is made up of erectile tissue. What is it made up of? Erectile tissue, so that it can become erect, which is going to help in the process of insemination, as in the transfer of sperms to the female body. Now glans penis is there, that is this particular region, which is considered to be more thicker in nature. This is thin and this is going to be the enlarged portion, which is known as the glans penis. And in the glans penis you have a skin, you have a skin fold, okay? And what do you call the skin fold as, which is particularly there? You call this as the foreskin. Okay, it is covered with the help of foreskin. So the foreskin is actually a loose sort of skin, so it can be moved up and as well as down, and it is highly, this glans penis region, my dear children, it's highly supplied with so many neurons are there, such that it provides sexual pleasure to the man. Okay, so penis, male external genitalia made up of erectile tissue for insemination. The glans penis region is there, which has enlarged tip and is covered by what? Foreskin. That's all. Now going ahead with the next thing. So I hope now you have understood the male part which is there. So this is the side view. Okay, this is the what? Sectional view of everything out there. So as you can see over here, in the front portion you have everything, that is a urinary bladder, and then this is the urinary bladder, and here you have the seminal vesicle, that is this, and then you have the prostate gland, the bulbourethral gland, and here you have the testis which goes and loops back to the urinary gland, and everything happens. At the back side of it you have the rectum as well as the anus in the case of men. So I hope now this particular picture might be somewhat clear to you guys. Okay, now going ahead with the next part of the story, and that is about the females. And in female, again you have a primary sex organ which is responsible for production of the female gametes, which is the egg, and also the female hormones, which is estrogen, progesterone and things like that. So over here what exactly happens? This particular region in the ovary, the outermost region, it is known as cortex. Okay, and the inner region which is supplied with blood vessels and things like that, it is known as medulla. So you have outer cortex region and inner region which is known as what? Medulla. I hope this is clear to you guys. Medulla is rich in what? Blood vessels and things like that. And over here the ovary, as you see, it is attached to the uterus with the help of ligament, with the help of a ligament which you call as ovarian ligament. And over here there is something that supports the whole uterus and all the structures out there. You call this as broad ligament. Okay, you call this as the broad ligament. We will learn more about it over here. So first, the primary sex organ, that is the ovaries, they produce ovum as well as ovarian hormones, that is estrogen and progesterone, located on each side of the lower abdomen. It is present towards the lower abdomen region. Okay, so here from the portion where the chest part ends, my dear children, this is the thoracic cavity, and then you have the abdominal region. Okay, below the chest region you have the abdominal region. In the abdominal region, the lower part is known as lower abdominal region, or you also can call it the pelvic region. You can also call it the pelvic region. Okay, now the size, but here let's go behind with the NCERT itself to take it lower abdominal region. And the size of the ovary, if you see, it's 2 to 4 centimeter. Not get confused with the testis size. Testis size width was 2 to 3 and length was 4 to 5. Over here in this case, the size in total is what? 2 to 4 centimeter in length. Now connected to the pelvic wall and the uterus by the ligaments. So it is connected to the pelvic wall, as in the wall, pelvic wall. I told you pelvic cavity is there, so the wall, the body's wall, my dear children, it is connected to the wall with the help of ligaments, and to the uterus also with the help of ligaments. So over here there is ovarian ligament. Over here the one that supports everything is known as broad ligament, and there are separate other ligaments also about which you should not be as of now concerned now. Okay, so now it is covered by the thin epithelium enclosing what? The ovarian stroma. So there is a stroma layer, I told you. Okay, ovarian stroma as in this particular thing. This whole thing is known as ovarian stroma. The outer region is cortex and the inner region is what? Medulla. Fine, done. Now, I told you there is a thin epithelium that encloses the ovarian. So that ovarian stroma, that is known as germinal epithelium. It is the outer thin layer of cells, protective outermost coat. And then comes something that is known as tunica albuginea, which is the dense connective tissue that provides what? Structural support to it. Okay, that this is the structure, you have to stay like this and things like that. Now there is cortex region. Cortex region contains follicles as well as what? Hormones. It is where the ovum production is being happening in the cortex region. Now medulla, the innermost region, is core with blood vessels, supports what? The ovarian functions of the body. Okay. Now this is not in your NCERT, this is the only thing given, but just for your better understanding I just explained it. Okay. Now, so you have germinal epithelium, then tunica albuginea, then you have the cortex, and then you have the medulla inside. Now my dear children, the next thing is the female accessory duct, which is oviduct, which is uterus, and also the vagina. Okay, so these three things together are known as ducts because this is the place through which the ovum is going to get transported, or at the end, my dear children, even the baby would be moving out of the vagina itself. So the whole thing is known as the duct, so that is the female accessory ducts. Starting with the oviduct out there, it is also known as the fallopian tube. What do you call this? Fallopian tube, and the length of it is almost 10 to 12 centimeter. Okay, that is the length. Now, at this particular region, this broad region that you see over here, okay, this funnel shaped region that you see over here, it is known as infundibulum, and the finger-like projection that you see at the end, they are known as what? Fimbriae. Why do you think there is fimbriae? For collection of ovum that are going to be produced from the ovaries. Ovaries are going to produce some ovum, and that should be someone to collect it. Who does that? It is the fimbriae of the infundibulum. And then my dear children, there comes a broader region. This broader region that you see is known as ampulla, and then comes a narrow region up there which you call as isthmus. So it extends from the ovary to the uterus. This part of the system is known as the uterus. This is the ovary, so it is going to extend from the ovary to the uterus. First thing, you have funnel shaped infundibulum, which has fimbriae, the finger like projections, and then you have a broad ampulla, and then you have a narrow, what do you call, isthmus region. Covered? Done? Fine. Now the next thing is the uterus. So uterus is also going to be acting like what? The accessory ducts, because it is also through which the baby and everything is going to move out, and even if fertilization is not happening, ovum will also move out to the same region only. So over here, as you can see, this is the uterus, my region, the whole thing starting from here to here. So it is held by ligaments attached to the pelvic wall. I told you the broad ligaments are there. So it opens into the vagina through a narrow thing which is known as cervix. So this is the vagina, and it is opening through it with the help of what? Cervix. This region is known as what? The cervical region. And this small space in between is known as cervical canal. Okay, so I'll tell you one more thing. The cervical canal plus the vagina, it forms something which is known as the birth canal. This is where the baby will be coming out from. So cervical canal plus the vagina forms the birth canal out there. Now if we talk about the uterus in general, you have three layers in the uterus. The outermost layer which is there, the outermost layer which provides protection and things like that, it is known as perimetrium. This is the thin outer membrane which is there. And then just inside that, you have the muscular layer which is made up of smooth muscles. What do you mean by smooth muscles? Are smooth muscles under our control? Are they voluntary muscles? No, they are involuntary. They are not under our control. They are under our brain's control, my dear children. So they can contract, they can relax. That is why women get cramps. That is how parturition happens. The baby is going to move out. So there is what do you call involuntary contraction that is happening, my dear children, which is why the baby will finally move out later on in the later phase of pregnancy. So myometrium is actually made up of smooth muscles. Always remember that, and it contracts during what? Delivery. Now the innermost layer that you have is a glandular layer. That means it is richly supplied with blood vessels and glands, and it is known as what? Endometrium. Inner glandular layer undergoes cyclic changes in the menstrual cycle, and this type of question actually comes. What is that membrane that undergoes cyclic changes? Cyclic changes means every month it is being shed, it is being formed. Every it is being shed, it is being formed. So there are cycle of changes that is happening in this particular layer. So this layer is known as what? Endometrium. Okay, and the shape of the uterus, if we see the pear, if a normal pear, it looks like this, but in this case the opposite of it would be like this. The inverted pear shape is there in the case of uterus. So shape is inverted pear, support is held by ligaments attached to the pelvic wall, opens into the vagina through what? Something that is known as a narrow cervix. So the cervical canal plus the vagina forms what? The birth canal. Uterine wall layers, you have perimetrium, you have myometrium, and you have endometrium. Perimetrium is the outermost layer, which is a thin outer layer. Please remember the terms, thin outer membrane. Okay, here it is, myometrium is thick, smooth muscular layer, and then you have what? Endometrium, which is again the inner glandular layer. Okay, done. Now going ahead with the next thing, which is, just a second, okay, so we have discussed about vagina and everything. So I told you in accessory ducts of females, you have the oviduct and you have the uterus as well as the vagina. So vagina coming under as a part of the external part of the uterus. I am not discussing it separately. Done. Now going ahead, the female external genitalia or the genital organ through which everything, what you call sexual reproduction happens. So what exactly happens over here? So if at all there is a woman whose legs are being spread, we can clear a clear structure like this. So over here, my dear children, in the external genitalia region, you find certain things. The outermost cushiony layer that you see over here, this is known as labia majora. It is known as labia majora. Within that, there is another layer which will be known as labia minora. This is what? Labia minora. Now, in the labia minora, my dear children, there is an opening over here, which is the vaginal opening. This opening that you see, my dear children, it is what? The vaginal opening, and at the top of it, my dear children, over here you will find the urethral opening. That means the urinary bladder is going to open up over here. Okay, but the vaginal opening, that is reproductive tract opening, is different. In the case of men, it is not different, it is the same, but in the case of female, it is going to be different. Now, the spot where both the labia minora are going to meet, okay, this region has a small thing which is known as what? Clitoris, which is the only erectile tissue which is found in the case of females. Okay, in the case of female also, they have an erectile tissue. During the sexual intercourse process, this particular clitoris become erected. Okay, so there is a small erectile tissue which is known as clitoris. Now, at the top region where you have a fatty layer which is which is going to have some hair on it, this is known as mons pubis. This structure would be known as mons pubis. So, mons pubis is the fatty cushion with skin as well as what? Pubic hair. The hair which is found in the pubic region, so that's the pubic hair. And then you have the labia majora, which are fleshy folds surrounding what? The vaginal opening. Inside that you have labia minora, inner paired folds beneath what? Beneath the labia majora. That means within it. Okay, then there is hymen. Thin membrane partially covering the vaginal opening may break due to various activities. Now that is very important. So the vagina usually have a thin membrane around it, which you call as what? Hymen. Now is hymen a sign of virginity or sign of sexual intercourse, my dear children? The answer is no, because hymen can be told off because of several reasons. If at all someone who is is a very good athlete, okay, is into sports, is into horse riding or some things like that, my dear children, or vigorous bicycling, they would have their hymen being told. So if at all in the question it is said that hymen is a suitable marker for virginity, the answer would be what? Wrong. It is not. It can be broken due to various activities out there. So it is thin membrane which is partially covering what? The vaginal opening. Now clitoris, I already explained, it is a small sensitive structure at the junction of two labia minora above the urethral opening. So above the urethral opening, over here you have the clitoris, which is what? A small sensitive structure. Okay, at the junction of this. That's all. Fine, done. So this is the female genital organ. Now, external genital organ, and now if you see the structure, again the sectional view, you can see that this is the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder will have an opening over here, that is urethral opening. In the case of the clitoris and everything is over here. At the back side of it, this particular thing is what? The uterus, that is the vaginal opening. So initially clitoris, then as we discussed, there will be urethral opening, and then the lowermost region you have the vaginal opening, and the back side you have the anus that is going to be attached to the large intestine out there. Okay, fine. So this is the structure. And now we come to the next thing, that is what? The mammary gland in the case of females. Just a second. So it's too cold. Yeah. So if you talk about the mammary glands, my dear children, this is the whole structure. And in this structure, you need to remember few things which you can understand with the help of this particular diagram itself. So there are certain lobes. How many lobes are there? Almost 15 to 20 lobes are there. So for just your understanding, I can make it like this. So just like that, you have almost 15 to 20 mammary lobes. Fine. I hope that is clear. Now, within the lobes, what do you have, ma'am? So over here, within the lobes, there are almost so many alveoli being present. Alveoli are what? Small structures like this. This is what? An alveoli. So I'll cover it up. This is what? An alveoli. And the alveoli which is there, this is where the milk is going to be stored. The alveoli are going to open up into what? Something that is known as tubules. And the tubules, my dear children, they are going to form something that is known as duct. So over here, suppose this is an alveoli. It is opening up into a tubule. Similarly, another alveoli will also be opening into tubule. These tubules are going to join together to form what? A duct out there. That is the mammary duct. So first is 15 to 20 mammary lobes. Inside the mammary lobes, you have the alveoli, and the alveoli lumen will have what? The milk being stored there. The alveoli will open into tubules, okay, and the tubules will be joining to form what? The duct. Now the ducts which are there, you got one duct from here, another duct will also be there. The ducts will join together to form what? To form mammary ampulla. So the ducts which are there, they are going to form a structure, the thick structure over here, that is known as the mammary ampulla. And the mammary ampulla to come together to form what? The lactiferous duct, through which the milk is going to exist. Okay. How do you remember it? You can remember it like this. Dal fell on mat. So mammary lobes, alveoli, tubules opens into ducts opens into ampulla, and L for lactiferous ducts. Ampulla opens into lactiferous duct. Dal fell on mat. Okay, you can remember like that. The mat word would come first, but always remember, you should not forget lobes as, you should not consider lobes as L. So mammary lobes, then A for alveoli, not ampulla. So ampulla has an L over here, you can remember like that. So this ampulla would be over here. Here you have the alveoli, then tubules, then ducts, then ampulla, then lactiferous ducts. Okay, this is the structure. You might have to draw this, so make sure you're practicing it enough. Over here you just have some fat layers, okay, and there is areolar region, there is nipple, and there are ribs behind, okay, and the muscles in between the ribs are also being mentioned over here, nothing much. Okay, it's not a very difficult diagram to make. Now going ahead, the next thing out there which is known as what? Spermatogenesis. So we have studied about the male and the female reproductive parts. Now we are going to see ahead, how does the sperm formation actually take place? Okay, so are we ready? So let's see. So over here, do we have a picture? Okay, we have a picture, but let's read it from here. So there are certain cells which are known as spermatogonea. Okay. Now this spermatogonea, they are going to undergo mitosis. They are 2N in nature. That means they are diploid in nature. They are going to undergo mitosis, again form certain cells like this, 2N. After mitosis, you get the same type of cells, right? One cell will undergo what you call division to form another spermatogonea. Another cell, my dear children, it is going to get differentiated, as in it is going to get matured to form what? To form something which is known as the primary spermatocyte. That means it is the one that is destined to be a sperm later on. It is the one that is destined to what you call help in the formation of sperm later on. So this one, this normal cell which was there, it got differentiated, no mitosis, not meiosis, nothing. It got differentiated to form the primary spermatocyte over here. So it will be obviously diploid in nature. Agreed? Now this spermatocyte will start undergoing, what does the cells undergo to form the gametes, my dear children? It will undergo meiosis, and meiosis happens in two stages. There is meiosis 1, where the cell will divide into 2, but the number of chromosome becomes half. So it becomes haploid over here. And what are these cells now known as? They were primary spermatocytes. These would be secondary spermatocyte. Okay, they are secondary spermatocyte. Now what happens to them? Again they will undergo meiosis 2. This cell is going to divide into 2 other cells. Similarly, this cell is also going to divide into 2 other cells. Now at the end you get 2 cells out here. Okay, here it will be N. It won't reduce more. Only in the first meiosis it gets reduced, rest of it remains the same. Now these cells which are being formed over here, they are known as what? They are known as the spermatids. They are known as spermatids. Ma'am, are these the sperms? No. Spermatids are globular in shape. They do not look like the sperm. They are immature. Okay, they are like kids. Kids. Okay. So over here, they have to be transformed into something that are mature, and the mature form of it will be known as spermatozoa. What is it known as? It is known as spermatozoa, my dear children. And this process of conversion of spermatids to what? Spermatozoa, it is known as, remember, this is known as spermiogenesis. Spermiogenesis is different from the whole process of what? Spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis means formation of sperms. Spermiogenesis means just this process where the immature spermatids are going to get matured into spermatozoa, which are going to be looking like sperms. And later, they are going to leave the seminiferous tubules, and this process of aviation is known as spermiation. You can remember like that. This is known as spermiation. So spermatogenesis, under that you have spermiogenesis, where conversion of immature to mature is happening, and then formation of, then release of sperms from the seminiferous tubules. From the seminiferous tubules is happening, and that is known as spermiation. So if at all you are asked, what is the ploidy of primary secondary spermatocyte? It is N. Haploid. What is the ploidy of primary spermatocyte? It is 2N, diploid. Okay, remember that. And that's all. That's all about spermatogenesis. So formation of sperms in the testes starts at puberty. Yeah, that is there. In the case of males, it is going to start at puberty. Okay, spermatogonia, 2N, 46 number of chromosome, multiply via mitosis. So normal cell have 46 number of chromosome, which is why you call this as 2N. And the gametes which are there, they will have half the number of chromosome, which is why you call this 23, that is N. Okay, half of 46 is about 23. Now primary spermatocytes 2N undergo meiosis 1, form secondary spermatocyte N having what? 23 chromosomes. Then the secondary spermatocytes undergo meiosis 2, form spermatids having N 23 chromosomes, and then spermiogenesis happens. Spermatids, they mature into what? Spermatozoa. Spermiation happens when the mature sperms are released from the seminiferous tubules, and then it's done. Done? Okay. Now the story of the mighty hormone. So obviously all of this thing, when I say that it is happening at the puberty, why does it happens at the puberty? Because my dear children, over here there are certain hormones which are going to get activated. So for making you understand that, we need to draw a little picture. Just a second. Okay, so hypothalamus, which is there in the brain, my dear children, it is going to release something which is known as gonadotropin releasing hormones. What is it? Gonadotropin releasing hormones. So there are certain hormones which are known as gonadotropins. Why? Because they are going to affect the gonads. Gonads are basically testes, ovary and things like that. So gonadotropin releasing hormones are being produced by hypothalamus. It goes and acts on the anterior part of the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland has anterior lobe and posterior lobe. It goes and acts on the anterior pituitary gland and then makes it produce two things. One is LH, luteinizing hormone, and another one is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. The LH which is there, it goes and acts on the Leydig cells. It goes and acts on the Leydig cells, LL. right? And it makes it produce the male sex hormone. What is the function of Leydig cells? To produce the male sex hormone, that is what? Testosterone. It produces testosterone. What does FSH do? So over here in these seminiferous tubules, my dear children, what has been happening? Spermatogenesis is being continued over here. And who is there to nourish all these cells? Sertoli cells. So what happens? FSH acts on the Sertoli cells such that it releases certain factors. It releases certain factors which is going to make the testosterone come inside and stay over here where the whole process is happening, such that the concentration is maintained and such that the whole process can take place smoothly. Especially in your book it is written that the process of spermatogenesis, is the one that is most affected if at all this is not happening. Okay, so anyway this has to happen with the help of testosterone. Testosterone anyways has to come in. It comes in, but it has to stay there, has to make sure that the concentration is being maintained. For that, FSH says, Sertoli cells, that please release certain factors which can make the testosterone stay here itself, and the whole process happens smoothly, and especially the spermatogenesis process, the conversion of immature to mature sperm process. Okay, that can definitely happen. So this is the whole story. I'll tell you once again, listen to me carefully. Hypothalamus, when a person reaches puberty, releases a hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, goes and acts on the anterior pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland, which is again the brain area itself, it produces two hormones, that is luteinizing hormone and FSH. Luteinizing hormone goes and acts on the Leydig cells, which is between the seminiferous tubules, and now the Leydig cells will produce what? Testosterone. The testosterone gets inside the seminiferous tubules where the sperm formation is actually taking place. Over here, the next hormone FSH tells the Sertoli cells that can you release certain factors such that the testosterone level is maintained over here, such that the process can be very smooth and the process of spermatogenesis can be extra smooth. So it says yes. So these are the things. Okay, so GnRH stimulates the anterior pituitary gland to release LH and FSH. LH acts on the Leydig cells, stimulating the androgen secretion, that is the male sex hormone secretion, testosterone, promotes spermatogenesis. FSH, which is there, acts on Sertoli cells, stimulating secretion of factors, aiding what? Spermatogenesis. Not just spermatogenesis, the whole thing. Okay, but especially spermatogenesis, you can remember like that. So this is the story of mighty hormones up there. Now going ahead with the next thing, that is the structure of sperms. We studied about how it is formed, but then we didn't study about what is the structure of sperm. So if you see over here, the sperm has certain things, that is the head region. This particular region is the head region. The head has the nucleus. What type of nucleus is it? Haploid or diploid? It is haploid. The sperm has haploid, the egg has haploid, haploid comes together to form the diploid zygote. So over here it is the haploid nucleus. At the top of it you have a structure which is known as acrosome. What is it? Acrosome. Acrosome is a structure which is filled with enzymes, my dear children. Why do you think enzymes are there? So that these enzymes can go attack on the egg's membrane and can open it and fuse with it. Okay, that is why we have certain hydrolytic enzymes needed for the process of fertilization. So this is about the head region. So head contains of haploid nucleus. Just a second. Yeah, head contains of haploid nucleus and the acrosomes, which is very much essential for the process of fertilization. Now comes the next part, which is known as neck. I have not written there, but neck is also there. Okay, there is a head, and then after that you have neck, and then you have this particular region which is known as the middle piece. Middle piece, as you can see over here, they have strands of mitochondria, my dear children. Why do you think mitochondria is there? Mitochondria is the energy source for the next part of the sperm, which is the tail. Okay, so tail has to move such that the sperm go and reaches the egg, my dear children. Do you know where fertilization happens? Remember that. Fertilization happens in the ampulla region. Remember, infundibulum, broad ampulla, and then narrow isthmus. So the fertilization happens in the ampulla region, my dear children. The egg comes and waits there. So this guy has to swim up until that particular region, which is why it needs a lot of energy. So tail enables what? Sperm motility, essential for the process of fertilization. So what all parts are there? Head region is there, neck region is there, middle piece is there, and tail is there. Head has haploid nucleus and also acrosome. Okay, and the middle piece, if you see, it has lots of mitochondria which helps in the tail's movement. Now, if you talk about the process of ejaculation, that is the release of sperms, my dear children, almost 200 to 300 million sperms, at least 200 to 300 million sperms are being released during an ejaculation. Per ejaculation, you think 200 to 300 million, please remember it's not billion, it's million, you need to remember it, million sperms are being produced, and at least 60% of them should be what? Of normal shape and size. At least 60% of them should be of normal shape and size, and out of this 60%, at least 40 of them should be motile, my dear children. Out of this, 40% should be what? Motile, for the process of fertility to happen. Motile means it should move, should be able to move properly. So 60% of this 2,000 to 300 million sperms, 60% of it should be of normal shape and size, and out of that 40% of them should be at least having proper motility. Can you remember it? 60 first and then 40. 60 with normal shape and size and 40 with motility. Done? Cool. Fine, let's go ahead. Now comes the process of oogenesis. We studied about spermatogenesis. Now we are going ahead with the process of oogenesis. So over here also the story is kind of twisted a bit, okay, with little extra things happening in the female's life. Because females, we females have everything extra to tell to you guys, right? So over here also there are certain things that are extra and you need to remember it. So first thing first, the process of oogenesis does not start at puberty. It starts during the embryonic development itself. For example, a mother is there, in her womb there is a girl baby. When the embryo is being formed, my dear children, this point onwards, what do you call, the process of oogenesis is going to begin. Okay, so a couple of million oogonia, gamete mother cells, forms in the fetal ovaries. In the fetus's ovary, my dear children, millions of oogonia is going to be formed. No new oogonia are going to be added up over here. And now, what happens over here? The oogonia which is there, okay, some of them, oogonia which is there, the sum of them similarly over here also differentiates, and I will call them as the primary oocytes. They are the primary oocytes up there, which is 2n in nature. Now they start undergoing a process of meiosis. You know, meiosis happens in multiple stages. The first stage is what do you call, prophase, then metaphase, then anaphase, then telophase. This is one stage of meiosis, right? So over here, all of 1, 1, 1, 1. The first meiosis, all of this happens, right? This primary oocyte which is there, it starts off meiosis but gets stuck over here in the prophase 1. So it is as of now stuck in the prophase stage. The primary oocytes are stuck in the prophase 1 of the meiosis. Each primary oocyte is surrounded by granulosa cells, forms a primary follicle. The cell which is there, the primary oocyte which is there, it is now going to be surrounded by a group of cells which you call as what? Granulosa cells. And you call the whole thing as what? The follicle, the primary follicle. So this is the primary oocyte, and it is within the primary follicle. Fine. Many follicles degenerate from birth to puberty. Now it is formed at birth, and from birth to puberty, my dear children, most of them, they are going to get degenerated, such that only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles per ovary are going to be there when you hit puberty. Only 60,000 to 80,000. You started with millions, and now in each ovary, I am telling you, in each ovary, not individual, not just all together. In each ovary, you have 60,000 to almost 80,000 primary follicles per ovary. Now, what happens, my dear children? The primary follicles which are there, they will transform into secondary follicles. Slowly, after puberty, my dear children, after puberty, okay, they will transform into secondary follicles. Ma'am, what happens in secondary follicles? Is there any change in the primary oocyte? Primary oocyte remains like that, or does it change to something else? Does it complete the process of meiosis? No, it is just like that. So the primary oocyte is still there, okay, the primary oocyte is still there, just that. So this was the granulosa layer. You have extra granulosa layer coming up now, my dear children, and apart from that, you get a layer of theca formation. So there is a theca also being formed. So extra granulosa layer, and then you have a theca layer also being formed over here. And now you call this whole structure as what? This whole structure is known as the secondary follicle. So within the secondary follicle also you have the primary oocyte, which is still stuck in the prophase 1 of what? Meiosis. Please remember, prophase 1 of meiosis, right? Now we go ahead. What happens after that? So the secondary follicle which is there, it is now going to transform into tertiary follicle. What exactly happens over here, ma'am? exactly what is there. So my dear children, so primary oocyte which is still being there, primary oocyte, let's make it. Okay, you have granulosa layer, right? Now the theca layer which is there, it is going to divide into two things. Outer theca externa, okay, outer theca externa, and there will be one more layer which is known as inner theca interna. So two theca layers are there, and there will be one fluid filled cavity. There will be one fluid filled cavity up over here. Rest all of it is what? Granulosa layer. There will be a fluid filled cavity which you call as what? Antrum. This is antrum. Now ma'am, no changes happens in the tertiary follicle? What do you think so? Changes happens. The primary oocyte which is there, it is, whenever tertiary follicle is being formed, my dear children, the primary oocyte which is there, it is going to complete its first meiotic division. So over here it was getting stuck, right? It was stuck in the first meiotic phase, the primary oocyte 2N. It is going to complete its division and going to give rise to two cells. One cell, this is, both of them are going to be haploid. One cell is known as the first polar body, and the second cell is known as the secondary oocyte. So inside the secondary follicle you had the primary oocyte, and now inside the tertiary follicle you have the secondary oocyte. Okay, secondary oocyte is up over here, and there is a small polar body which is this, which is going to disintegrate. Okay, and there is the second, what do you call, secondary oocyte as well. Now the tertiary follicles which are there, they are going to transform into the next thing which is known as the Graafian follicle. Now what is the change that is happening over here, and what do you call, Graafian follicle is what? The most mature follicle. Okay, it is the mature follicle. Why do you think this transformation takes place? It happens because of the effect of the hormones. It cannot happen randomly. It is because some hormones are working up there. Okay, so the secondary oocyte which is there, let's see what are the new changes that takes place. So over here you have the outer theca externa, and then you have the inner theca interna, and then my dear children, the secondary oocyte is there. Secondary oocyte is there, right? This secondary oocyte which is there, my dear children, it forms a layer around it, and please remember, this layer is formed by the secondary oocyte itself. You need to remember the name of this layer which is formed by the secondary oocyte. This is known as the zona pellucida layer. It is known as the zona pellucida layer. And the granulosa cells which are there, they form another layer around it. But this time you have a specific name to it. You call it corona radiata. You call it corona radiata. Okay, and apart from that, obviously there will be what? The granulosa cells, and also the antral cavity would be still there. It would be bigger now, the antral cavity is going to be bigger, but it is still there. So whenever, now these are the follicles where what? The secondary oocyte is there. The secondary oocyte which is being formed, my dear children, so over here you had the primary oocyte which divided to form the first polar body and the secondary oocyte. Okay, right? Now this will also try to undergo meiosis too, but this also becomes stuck at metaphase. It becomes stuck at metaphase 2 of meiosis. So metaphase 2 of meiosis, it stays there in this particular stage until and unless it's time for fertilization. Okay, when the sperm comes in, okay, when the sperm comes in, my dear, slowly the whole process of fertilization is going to happen, and the secondary oocyte is finally going to divide into two cells again, the second polar body, and finally the one thing that we want, which is the ovum. So this happens just before fertilization. Fertilization, as in the sperm will try to enter anyway, but the nucleuses would not have fused. Okay, so first of all, the sperm will enter and the secondary oocyte will divide to form what? The ovum, and finally the ovum's nucleus and the sperm's nucleus meets to form the zygote later on. Okay, so for that, my dear children, don't you think that this secondary oocyte should come out? Yes, it does. That happens during the process of ovulation. So every time ovulation happens, my dear children, what is there? There is a graphene follicle, which is a mature follicle. It ruptures to release the whole thing out there. The secondary oocyte plus the corona radiata plus the zona pellucida. So it's all of them waiting there at the ampler region for the sperm to come in. Okay, always remember. So graphene follicle development and ovulation, tertiary follicle converts into graphene follicle. The secondary oocyte forms zona pellucida, protective glycoprotein layer. What is it? Glycoprotein layer. That means it is made up of carbohydrate as well as protein. Now graphene follicle ruptures, ovulation occurs, releasing the secondary oocyte into the fallopian tube. It will go into the fallopian tube. That's all. So now, where will you see all of this thing? You are going to see all of this thing in what? In the menstrual cycle. So as of now, I don't think we need to compare it. We already know. It's just that, okay, at the end of spermatogenesis, how many sperms are being formed? 4. But the end of sperm, what do you call it? At the end of oogenesis, only one ovum is going to be there, because over here, the first polar body is not going to divide further. Similarly, the second polar body which is being formed, it is also not going to be dividing further. So we are losing 1, 2, 3, 4 cells out there. Okay, you get it? So there is a huge loss up over here. There is only one cell being formed. Only one cell, that is the ovum. Cool? So yes, and also one more very important thing, this happens at the puberty, this happens from the embryonic developmental stage itself. Now comes the menstrual cycle, where exactly what all things happen. So we need to study about that. For that we need to go over here. Let's be patient and let's study. My head is aching a bit, I don't know why. Okay. So the phases in the menstrual cycle can be divided like this: menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase and luteal phase. So menstrual phase, you can imagine it to be on the first day, 1st of September. Okay, so from the 1st of September to 5th of September, what is going to happen? The menstrual phase is happening. What do you mean by menstrual phase, ma'am? Over here, the endometrium is going to shed. The innermost layer, no, of the uterus, it is going to shed. Why, ma'am? Because there are 2 hormones responsible for making these guys, the endometrium, remain there. Those are what? Estrogen and also progesterone. Both of these hormones level, it goes down, which is why the endometrium will now shed. Okay, taking the most utilization of this particular thing, there is another hormone which is going to increase in their quantity. So these hormones, estrogen and progesterone, my dear children, they are what hormones? They are being released by the ovary. So I'll call them as ovarian hormones. On the other hand, there are 2 other hormones, that is the enemies of these guys, that is LH and FSH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These 2 hormones are what are released by the pituitary gland. So whenever estrogen and progesterone is less, at this particular point of time, FSH and LH slowly begin to increase. They increase even more when they enter this particular phase. That is known as the follicular phase. Why they are known as follicular phase? Because over here the amount of LH is increasing, and when the amount of FSH is increasing, follicle stimulating hormone is increasing, and over here the follicles are going to get mature, primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary, tertiary to what? The Graafian follicles. So over here the follicles are maturing, and while the follicles are maturing, my dear children, I told you it is made up of granulosa cells. These granulosa cells which are there, they are going to release a hormone which is known as estrogen. So the estrogen is now being released. Estrogen, which went down because the ovary was not really, ovarian hormones, both of them went down for some reason. We do not know the reason as of now. Let's not know the reason as of now. Okay, we do not know it. And they were down, and taking the most utilization of it, the pituitary gland hormone, LH and FSH, increased. By 5th of September, they were increasing, and while they go after that, my dear children, the FSH increased, and it made sure that the follicles are what? Maturing. But now the twist happened. The follicles which were maturing under the influence of FSH as well as LH, my dear children, but majorly FSH, whatever happening, these follicles itself, the granulosa cells of these follicle itself start producing what? Estrogen. So granulose and everything, all of this is happening in the ovary. Ovarian hormone, ovary itself is releasing what? In the ovary itself, estrogen and everything is being released, right? So this hormone is being released. Estrogen is also being released at this particular point. Now when estrogen is being released, my dear children, the endometrium line will just shed down. Okay, over here it shedded down. Now it is slowly going to form back. It is slowly going to form back. But it needs its friend progesterone. Without it, it cannot do the whole thing. So it's slowly forming. And you know what? When estrogen is being formed, the FSH now cannot increase its quantity. That is there. So when estrogen is released, because of this FSH guy only it is being formed, but somehow when estrogen is being released, FSH cannot increase its quantity unless and until one thing happens. So usually estrogen and FSH do not meet each other, but at one time when the level of estrogen is way too high, at this particular point of time, FSH and LH level also increases way too much. Okay, that is a unique case. Here, level of LH and FSH also increases because of the level of estrogen being increasing. This is very rare, but it happens. Because at this point, the follicles are maturing and they are releasing more and more estrogen, which is why there is a sudden spike of what? LH as well as FSH. Majorly FSH happening on the 14th day of the cycle. So first to 14th day of the cycle, which is why, my dear children, this one will rupture and release what? The secondary oocyte which is there. It will release the secondary oocyte up over here. So it had the secondary oocyte up here and now it is releasing during the ovulatory phase or the ovulation. Why it happened? Because there was too much amount of LH. This is known as the LH surge. Right? Now the oocyte is being released. Secondary oocyte along with coronary zona pellucida, everything is being released. Now what happens? Whatever thing is left behind in the Graafian follicle, my dear children, whatever thing is being left behind in the Graafian follicle, those things, that is known as corpus luteum. It is known as corpus luteum. This corpus luteum which is there, it is now, okay, corpus luteum is released. Why? Because LH surge happened. So basically I can say it is LH that is behind what? The corpus luteum. LH and FSH, but majorly the LH which is behind the formation of corpus luteum. This is the one that which is why it went off like that and the secondary side got released, right? So now, my dear children, this corpus luteum is going to release a hormone which is known as progesterone. It releases a hormone progesterone, also little amount of estrogen. So the the endometrium line which was there, it will now double up. Okay, it will become more glandular. Why? Because estrogen's best friend progesterone is over here, and progesterone is the one that is majorly responsible for glandular formation of endometrium out there. But you know what? Even progesterone do not like LH and FSH. So it goes and tells the GnRH is the one that releases tells the anti-repeated to release all this thing to stop the secretion of LH and FSH. It tells to stop the secretion of LH and FSH and LH are there, won't be secreted. That's the condition that it has. But my dear children does not realize that if at all LH is not there, corpus luteum is not there. If corpus luteum is not there, progesterone also will not be there. So this happens whenever, my dear children, fertilization is not occurring. Whenever fertilization is not occurring, this cycle is going to happen. If at all fertilization is occurring, my dear children, there will be formation of zygote, then embryo, and there will be a spike of a hormone that is known as human chorionic gonadotrophin, which will be taking care of maintaining the corpus luteum. So there will be someone else to take care of corpus luteum, and you do not need LH because progesterone does not like it. So LH would not be there. With the help of that particular hormone SCG, okay, that is human chorionic gonadotrophin, corpus luteum can be maintained and progesterone can still be produced. But over here this is not the case. Zygote formation has not taken place. There is no formation of the other hormone out there, which is why progesterone says that you have to stop your secretion. LH and FSH drops down, corpus luteum also drops down, the level of progesterone and estrogen also drops down, which is why, my dear children, the next thing that happens would be what? Again, the menstrual phase. So whole thing happens over here in this particular phase, that is luteal phase. Why it is known as luteal phase? Because corpus luteum is going to release progesterone and everything. And why is it known as secretory phase? Because because the progesterone which is there, it maintains the endometrium layer and it also makes it secretes glycogen. Why do you think glycogen is being secreted? Thinking that if at all the sperm and the egg has come together, there will be formation of zygote, and the zygote has to be given what? Nourishment. So for that nourishment, my dear children, what do you call this? Glycogen is being released, which is why this is also known as the secretory phase. And over here, the follicular phase which was there, it was also known as proliferative phase, because it is the first time where again the endometrium is going to be formed with the help of estrogen. I hope this is clear. Once more I'll tell you, over here in menstrual phase you do not have estrogen, progesterone, all of its level have went down. Okay, so endometrium sheds off, there is no one to maintain it, that's why it sheds off. Now taking this into consideration, LH and FSH increases its amount, my dear children. FSH makes the follicles what? Get matured, and while the follicles are maturing, the granulosa cells are going to release estrogen. The estrogen which is there, it is going to remake the endometrium slowly, which is why it is known as proliferative phase. But when estrogen is there, FSH cannot be there, so it stays like that for some time. But when estrogen's amount increases way too much, my dear children, at this you get a surge of FSH and LH, majorly LH, which causes the ovulation. At this particular point of time, the Graafian follicle ruptures and the secondary oocyte is being released, and whatever is left behind, it is known as corpus luteum. Now this corpus luteum is the one that will be taking over the luteal phase. Corpus luteum is going to release progesterone as well as estrogen, both of them responsible for maintaining what? The glandular layer, that is the endometrium, majorly the progesterone. But the progesterone, estrogen do not want like LH and FSH, which is why they tell the gonadotropin releasing hormone to stop the secretion. They tell the hypothalamus to stop the secretion, and my dear children, when it stops the secretion, corpus luteum won't be there. If corpus luteum is not there, progesterone would not be there, and the same thing would be repeating again. So if at all you are asked, when does the ovulation happens? It happens on the 14th day. Okay, and then the 20th day is complete, and the first day again you have the menstrual cycle. So it's usually 28-29 day cycle. The first time someone gets menstruation, this is known as menarche. Okay, it occurs at puberty. First menstruation occurs at puberty. Menstrual phase, which is there for 3 to 5 days, shedding of endometrial lining if no fertilization is there. Follicular phase or proliferative phase, the primary follicles mature into Graafian follicles, endometrium regenerates, FSH and LH levels rise, estrogen secretion increases. So FSH and LH rise initially, and then the estrogen level increases, and then these guys go down, but later on these guys come up because of estrogen secretion and causes what? LH surge, that is ovulatory phase. Now luteal phase, secretory phase, Graafian follicles forms the corpus luteum, secretes progesterone for the endometrial maintenance. If no fertilization, corpus luteum degenerates, new cycle starts. Pregnancy. During pregnancy, the menstrual cycle is going to stop, and my dear children, the time when a woman have the permanent cessation or the stoppage of menstrual cycle, you call this as menopause, and it usually happens when a person is almost 50 years old. Okay, then this is the reason why females have mood swings, because you only think the hormones are fluctuating like taka 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 taka. Don't you think obviously that would affect their mood? Yes. So please, if at all you have any women in your life, your mother, your sisters, all of them, please respect them and understand their feelings whenever they are going through the period phase. Okay, so over here, yes, so you have ovarian hormones, estrogen and progesterone, and the pituitary hormones, FSH and LH. And as I told you, everything happens like that. Estrogen level goes up, LH surge happens, secretion ovulation happens, and then the corpus luteum is being there. The corpus luteum helps in maintenance of progesterone. So progesterone level increases, estrogen also increases, but it's mostly progesterone, and the endometrium, as you can see, it increases. Slowly the corpus luteum, because of the progesterone itself, that you do not have to be there, the level of it goes down. Similarly, corpus luteum also go down. If corpus luteum goes down, these guys also go down, and then the menstruation again happens. So this is the thing. Now comes the next part of the story, which is fertilization. Okay, so in menstruation, I told you, my dear children, ovulation happens, right? If at all during the ovulation, that for 24 hours, the ovum waits there. Says that what? It will be viable, I mean it will be fertile. That means the sperm can come and fertilize it one day. Sperm, when it enters the body, it can remain for 5 days. I hope you know that as well. So over here, what exactly happens? And they finally meet. Let's see the story. So insemination. Insemination means what? The semen is released into the vagina during the process of copulation. Now the sperm movement. Sperms swim through the cervix, then goes to the uterus, and then goes to the ampulla of the fallopian tube. Ovum transport. Ovary releases the ovum which reaches the ampulla. So both of them are near the ampulla. Now sperm binds to the zona pellucida, blocking the entry of other sperms. I told you there is the secondary oocyte, right? There is zona pellucida layer and there is corona radiata. So sperm comes, okay, it has what you call the acrosome region. The acrosome which is there, it is going to release this hormones, so not the hormones, sorry, enzymes, not the hormones, it is the enzyme, hydrolytic enzymes, which cleaves down through the zona pellucida. So acrosomal enzymes help sperm penetrate the ovum. So it penetrates the ovum, all the sperms would be trying so, but only one would be able to do it. Okay, now once it comes in contact with the secondary oocyte's plasma membrane, comes in contact with the secondary oocyte plasma membrane, now there will be what you call certain signals sent from the secondary oocyte which says that there has to be permanent blockage of what? The zona pellucida. The zona pellucida will be very thick such that if at all it enters, okay, if at all the sperm enters, my dear children, as in, I will show you. Do I have a picture of it? Just a second. Yes. Okay, so over here the, okay, the sperm came in, okay, the sperm is there here. I was thinking, actually I was in a different zone. I'm thinking that where did that picture go? Anyways, so the sperm is here. It looks like this, almost like this. It has the acrosomes. With the help of it what you call cleave through the zona pellucida and it tries to enter. Okay, it will be trying to enter. Once it tries to enter the plasma membrane, my dear children, what exactly happens is that over here there will be certain changes in the zona pellucida layer such that it will be very thick in a way that no other cells can enter it. But the sperm is already in there. So over here you have to use your imagination. The sperm cell is already in there. Now the nucleus of it also comes in there. This cell, the secondary oocyte which is there, it completes a division to form what? The ova as well as the second polar body. And now the ovum's nucleus and the sperm's nucleus, they are going to join together, and that's how the process of fertilization happens. I thought I had a picture of it, but apparently I do not have it, which is why let's restrict ourselves to this. So secondary oocyte will complete its meiosis, forming a haploid ovum and a second polar body. The haploid nuclei of the sperm and the haploid nuclei of the ovum, it is going to fuse to form what? A diploid cell which is known as the zygote. So with the help of the acrosomal enzymes, it will penetrate through the zona pellucida layer, get entry, go to the plasma membrane. Once it comes and attaches to the plasma membrane of the cell, my dear children, of the secondary oocyte, this will bring out changes in the outer layer, that is zona pellucida. No other cells, no other sperm would be allowed to enter it. Now slowly when it tries to enter in, my dear children, the secondary oocyte which is there, it will complete the secretion, complete its whole process of division to give rise to what? One ovum and one second polar body out there. The ovum nucleus and the sperm's nucleus is now going to fuse to form the diploid zygote up over here. Okay, now going ahead with the next thing, that is cleavage towards the uterus. So over here the zygote which is being formed, you call this cell unicellular thing as zygote. This is the nucleus and this is the cell. This cell is known as zygote. It is unicellular. Now this cell is going to divide into two. Then it is going to divide into what? 4. So it will have 4 nucleus and things like that. That is how it goes on. This process is known as cleavage. Okay, it is known as cleavage. So zygote divides into 2, then 4, then 8, then 16 cells. And each cells are known as what? It is known as blastomere. It is known as blastomere. Now morula formation. So over here, once it reaches 8 to 16 cell stage, okay, once there are almost 8 to 16 blastomeres, you call the stage as what? Morula. Okay, you call the stage as morula, and morula is somewhere formed over here. Now the morula again will divide, and you get the next type of thing which is known as blastocyst stage, where what happens, the cells which are there, they will divide, they will arrange themselves like this. There will be an outer layer of cells which you call as trophoblast, and there will be what, inner layer of cells which you call as inner cell mass. So outer layer of cells trophoblast and inner layer of cells which are known as inner cell mass. The inner cell mass is something that is going to form embryo in future. It will be forming the embryo in future. Okay. And the outer one, as I told you, it is going to help in the formation of something which is known as placenta, which is going to help in the formation of placenta. So trophoblast layer, so since this blastocyst totally is being formed, it comes down rolling towards what, the uterus, the uterine wall, and it try to slowly embed into the walls of the uterus, that is the endometrium of the uterus. And now the wall of the uterus as well as the trophoblast together will help in the formation of what, placenta. So this trophoblast is basically a part of the embryo. So embryo's part as well as the uterine wall, both of them together are going to form the placenta, and the inner cell mass is going to form the actual embryo, which is going to later form into what, the fetus out there. Okay, so this whole thing is an embryo, but this part is something that will further divide to form what, the fetus later on, and this one will be the part that forms the placenta. The process of implantation, the process where the blastocyst comes and embeds over here into the uterine endometrium, this is known as implantation. So first is morula, that you need to remember, it is 8 to 16 cell stage, and then you have blastocyst stage, where, my dear children, you have a coelom like this, there is a cavity like this which is called as blastocele. You have an outer layer, that is trophoblast, and an inner cell mass also. This layer, the trophoblast, is going to embed into the uterine layer, and it is going to help in the formation of placenta later on. And the process where it is what, dividing, the zygote is dividing to form multiple cells out there, this is known as cleavage. Fine. Now about the placenta. Now, my dear children, you need to understand one very important thing, and that is, okay, let's make it easy. So the outer layer which is there, the trophoblast, it is going to form certain structures like this, which is known as chorionic villi. This is what? This is the trophoblast. The trophoblast is going to help in the formation of certain structures which are known as chorionic villi. And the chorionic villi, my dear children, they are surrounded by blood-filled spaces. Okay, blood-filled spaces from the mother's side. So over here what is going to happen, my dear children, is that there will be blood vessels. There would be blood vessels. Okay, now we have the placenta. What exactly happens over here? Just a second. So there was a small confusion in the diagram. Okay, so you know the trophoblast layer which is there. I am saying the trophoblast is going to form some structures like this, which is known as, okay, which is known as the chorionic villi. And over here the inner cell mass is going to form the baby out there, right? It is going to form the fetus, and over here you have something that is known as the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord will have the blood vessels. It would be having the blood vessels, and these blood vessels are going to travel down to each of them. Okay, into this chorionic villi structure which is there, and surrounding it is what, my dear children? Surrounding it is what? Blood spaces from the mother's end. It is what? Blood filled spaces. Blood filled spaces or blood spaces. Over here also the mother whose blood vessels are there, they are going to be around here, okay, and they would be exchanging stuff here. They would also be exchanging stuffs right over here, my dear children, and that is how exchange of materials happen. So in the baby, to the placenta. This whole structure which is being formed over here, it is going to be known as what? The placenta. And with the help of the placenta, the baby will be giving out whatever waste materials are there, okay, and it will be absorbing. So for example, over here the amount of concentration of oxygen is less, it will be taking from this side. Oxygen will be transferring from a region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Similarly, if CO2 is more over here, it will move from here to there, from higher to lower concentration. So CO2 is moved out, oxygen is gotten. Nutrients also you will get, here it is lower, there it is higher, so we will get more over this particular side. That is how the transfer of things takes place, and this is attached with the help of what? Umbilical cord, which is being cut later on when the child is being born. Okay. Now if you see the structure, so chorionic villi is a finger-like projections on the trophoblast surrounded by what? The maternal blood. The placenta formation, chorionic villi plus the uterine tissue, that is the blood filled spaces, my dear children, they form the structural and functional link between the mother and the fetus. What is the function of placenta? It is exchange, that is it supplies oxygen as well as nutrients and removes what? CO2 and waste. Supplies oxygen and nutrients and removes CO2 as well as some waste out there. Connection is through umbilical cord, which transports substances between the fetus as well as the mother. The placenta which is there, you call this as, please remember, the placenta which is there, you call this as a temporary endocrine tissue. Temporary endocrine tissue. Why? Because it is only found during pregnancy and it is responsible for production of certain hormones, that is HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, HPL, human placental lactogen, estrogen and also progesterone. HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, is the one that maintains what? That maintains the corpus luteum. And you might have known about what you call the urine test which is being done during pregnancy to test whether it is there or not. So why there is a red color formation happening out there? Because of the increase in this particular hormone, that is the HCG hormone, my dear children. Okay, so it is the one that maintains the corpus luteum, and corpus luteum on the other hand helps in the maintenance of endometrium by production of progesterone and estrogen. Now HPL, human placental lactogen, that has something to do with the lactation functionality. Okay, lactation as in breastfeeding. Okay, the mother's milk formation is being done with the help of this particular hormone along with the other hormones out there. Estrogen and progesterone are ovarian hormones, and also at this particular point of time placenta also helps in releasing of them. So there are 4 hormones that you need to remember: HCG, HPL, estrogen and progesterone. This is a very important question. What are the hormones produced by placenta? And this is a temporary endocrine tissue. Now, so the other hormones just sit and watch? No, there are some other hormones also which are being released. One is relaxin. Relaxin is a hormone which is specifically released by the ovary, but not during pregnancy, towards the later phase of pregnancy. Okay, towards the end of the pregnancy, this is being released. Always remember, the ovaries are as of now relaxing because the works are being taken up by the placenta, and towards the end they release relaxin. Why actually they release the relaxin hormone? To relax the pelvic ligaments out there, such that the cervix can dilate and easily the baby can move out. That is the thing. So to relax the pelvic ligaments and the cervix, that prepares the baby body for what? The process of delivery. Apart from that, one more question can come, that is, there are certain hormones whose level increases in multiple folds during pregnancy. What are those hormones? If that question is being asked, please do not wait and think about it. The answer is cortisol, prolactin and thyroxine are certain hormones whose level increases several folds in the maternal blood during the pregnancy. So they are there already. They are not like the human placental lactogen and things like that. They are there in the normal body as well, but their level increases during pregnancy, my dear children. How do they help? They help in supporting the fetal growth, the maternal metabolism and the pregnancy maintenance. Remember, fetal growth, maternal metabolism and the pregnancy maintenance. What are those? Cortisol, prolactin and thyroxine. Prolactin is a hormone released by the pituitary gland. Again, by the pituitary gland itself. So cortisol and prolactin and thyroxine are the hormones which are increased in several folds during what? During the pregnancy period as well. Done? Cool? Relaxin, will you forget? No. Now going ahead with the next thing, all about gestation. What do you mean by gestation? What do you mean by gestation, my dear children? The period where the fetus is being formed, that is gestation. So over here, what is the gestation period in the case of human beings? It is 9 months. It is what? 9 months. But before that, we need to talk about something else also, that is germless. When I say that embryo is being formed, so the embryo the layers, there are certain layers of the embryo. The inner cell mass which is there, right after implantation, it will form different layers in it. The inner cell mass itself will form multiple layers around it. So the first two layers which are formed is ectoderm, that is the outer layer. What is it responsible for? The cells of these layers are responsible for formation of skin, brain and the nerves. Skin, the outer layer, brain as well as the nerves. After that you have endoderm. Endoderm is the innermost layer. It will form the lining of the lungs, the gut and the liver. So it is the lining layer. So it is the innermost layer and it is responsible for forming the lining of the lung, gut and the liver. In between the ectoderm and the endoderm, you have another layer, that is what? Mesoderm. So mesoderm appears between ectoderm and endoderm and it forms the muscles, the bones, the heart, blood and more. So whatever comes in between, it makes that. So muscles, bones, your heart, the blood and more of things are being formed by the mesoderms. Now all organs come from these three layers. So these three layers which are there, ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm, all of the organs that you see comes from these three layers. You need to remember them. Inner cell mass has stem cells which has the potential to become any tissue or organ. So the inner cell mass which is found in the embryo, it has the capacity to form any tissue or organ later on, my dear children. Okay, so the first two layers which are there, they form ectoderm and endoderm, and the middle layer is known as mesoderm. Ectoderm is there for skin, brain and nerves, endoderm is there for lining of the lungs, the gut and the liver, mesoderm is there for formation of muscles, bones and heart and the blood and everything. Okay, so these are the different layers of the embryo. Now, excited to know what did you do inside the mother's womb? Are you excited? Let me tell you. These are few months that you need to definitely remember because it is going to come in the MCQ question for sure. Okay, so the first month, after the end of the first month, you can hear baby's heartbeat. So when we die, the first thing that is being checked is also heartbeat, and when we are born, the first thing that is being checked is also heartbeat. That's the first way to remember it. So first month, after the end of the first month, after the end of the first month, your heart formation would be there and your heartbeat would be detectable. Now second month, okay, your limbs and digits develop, as in the limbs are this and the digits are this. These are going to be slowly developed. By the end of first trimester, what do you understand from that? End of first trimester means the end of 3 months. By the end of 3 months or by the end of first trimester, that is the 12 weeks. So in each month, how many weeks are there? In each month, you have 4 weeks. So in 3 months, how many weeks will be there? 3 into 4, there will be 12 weeks up there. Okay, so by end of 3 months, my dear, major organs, limbs and external genitalia is going to be formed. Major organs would be formed, your limbs would be nicely formed and your external genital organ, male, female, whatever is there, it is also going to be formed. So first month, heart formation, heartbeat. Second month, limbs and digits. Okay, end of the third month, okay, you would be having major organs and as well as limbs and also external genitalia being formed. That is known as the first trimester, or you also call that as 12 weeks, do not be confused. Now by 5th month, what happens, my dear children? The baby says, I want to move around. So by the 5th month, God says that, okay, have your movement. So first fetal movement happens in the 5th month. And also hair would be there. The baby says, I want to shine in front of a lot of people out there. I need some hair. So hair on the head is also appearing on the 5th month itself. Now on the 6th month, God says that you asked for hair on the head, I give you hair on the body also. So there will be hair on the body, there will be eyelids, there will be separation of eyelids, there will be eyelashes formation, everything. Okay. So after the 6th month, fine, hair covers the whole body, eyelids will be separate, eyelashes also would be formed. By this, it will be 6 months and 24 weeks. So this is the second trimester, second set of the 3 months out there, right? So 4th month we missed over here. 4th month is not here. 5th and 6th month is being discussed. By this, the second trimester is ended, 24 weeks are ended and you have all of this being formed. And now directly skipping the 7th and 8th and going to the 9th month, you get the fully developed fetus ready for the process of what? Birth. And that's all. Tada. So by 9th month, everything is done and dusted. Cool. This is what you need to remember. Will you be able to remember it? I hope you do. Okay. Now comes the last part of this chapter. So sex determination I didn't explain over here because we have already spoken about it in principles of inheritance and variation. That is sex determination in the case of human beings. Okay, so X and X comes together, it becomes XX, that is a female. X and Y comes together, it becomes XY, that is a male. Okay. Now, the last thing, that is parturition. Parturition is what? Expulsion of fetus due to strong uterine contraction. The movement of fetus outside the body due to what? The strong uterine contraction which happens. And how does it exactly happen? Then there's a favorite question that is being asked. Why do you think parturition is a neuroendocrine mechanism? That means, why do you think parturition has both nervous as well as endocrine system participating over there? So you should know the answer. What exactly happens over here is that you have the baby, the fully grown fetus, my dear children. The fully grown fetus, as well as there would be certain layers. This layer that you see is known as myometrium. So innermost layer is endometrium. I am not making it over here as of now. Okay, or if you want me to make it, I will make it. Anyways, so the baby, when it is fully developed, okay, it releases androgens. Androgens, and these androgens are sensed by the placenta, and it converts into what? Converts it into estrogen. So this is one thing that is happening. Androgens are being released, and basically this has been converted to estrogen by the placenta, and over here these estrogen make certain receptors active. What type of receptors, my dear children? Oxytocin receptors, very, very active. Where are these receptors, my dear children? On the myometrium. What are these receptors? Oxytocin. So these oxytocin receptors are made to be active up over here. Usually they are not active, but these estrogens made them active. Now the fetus, since it is fully developed, it will try to move out. And when it tries to move out, my dear children, there will be certain stretch receptors up over here in the cervix. There will be certain stretch receptors up over here which gets activated, and which will give nervous signal, neuronal signal to what? To our brain. And in our brain we have hypothalamus, and then we have pituitary gland. And from the posterior, not the anterior part, okay, from the posterior pituitary of the mother, one hormone is being released which is known as oxytocin. This oxytocin hormone comes and binds over here. And what will happen now? It's on the muscular layer. Myometrium is a muscular layer. Now the contraction is going to happen. Contraction happens, and my dear children, the baby goes down, stretch receptors get more active, it tells again to release more oxytocin, and the same thing goes on. Relaxin is also being released there by the ovary during the later phase of pregnancy. You remember that? And then it moves down. Okay? So the first thing that you need to remember is that the first signals that I have to go out comes from both the fetus as well as the placenta. Both the fetus as well as the placenta. I told you why the fetus, because it releases hormones, and then that is converted to estrogen, and that is made to, these estrogens makes the receptors active, and the baby cells tries to move out, which induces the stretch receptors as well to give a neuronal signal. So because of the fetus as well as the placenta, you get the first signal, and this is known as the fetal ejection reflex. What do you call this? Fetal ejection reflex. Now, my dear children, the hormonal role. Oxytocin from the maternal pituitary causes stronger uterine contraction. So, positive feedback is there for, and again, my dear children, the same thing goes on. As I tell, this creates a positive feedback loop. More and more and more. And after birth, the placenta is what? Expelled. After the birth, along with the baby, the placenta also is moved out, my dear children. Doctors inject oxytocin to induce what? Labor in some patients out there. So, over here about nervous thing, it has not been mentioned, but let me tell you, it's the stretch receptors which gets active and gives the nervous control. So you can tell that. And it is the posterior pituitary that becomes activated. Please remember, it's the posterior pituitary. Okay? Fine? Done? Fine. So that's all. And after that, my dear children, the mother would be lactating. The first milk which is there, what do you call it? You call it colostrum. And if you remember, can you tell me which antibody is there found in the colostrum? Because I have taught you in human health and diseases. So tell me that, and that's all. If at all you have any doubts to ask me, definitely ask me in the comment section. I am here to help you out. Wishing you good luck. I hope you understood everything. And my dear children, don't be worried about anything out there. You are going to do absolutely great on the day of your examination. Bye-bye. Take care.